is an interesting character, a Scotsman who lives in Wales and speaks probably particularly good English. His home is the Llaniver Estate near Abergavenny. Do you notice I just went over that very quickly because I usually get it wrong? Where he and his wife have a number of let farms, a residential letting business, commercial premises, flock of pedigree black Welsh mountain sheep. He's a chartered surveyor, so he's got to be a good chap. Manages and develops rural and urban estates in Wales. He's a forester. He overseeing management of forests in southwest Scotland, as well as woodlands at home in Wales. Ross has been actively involved in the CLA for over 15 years and was elected president in November 2015. As I say, he's here to speak and to take things forward. I can also vouch that he's a very mean skier. So, Ross, over to you.
Well, Sir John Cave, president of this distinguished show, Bishop Peter, ladies and gentlemen, it's a joy and honour to be back at the Bath and West show again. I was last here 3 years ago. You were very kind to me then, and it's lovely to be back in such a sort of warm environment. This is one of the great shows. I go around a lot of shows in the country, and this is one of the really interesting and friendly ones. Can I welcome two particular guests today? The first is my friend Minette Batters, who I have to say is one of the greatest advocates for farming and a highly distinguished and contemporary Deputy President of the National Farmers Union. Minette, it's an absolute joy to have you here, and you're going to come up and you're going to sit on this swivel chair beside me in a moment. And ladies and gentlemen, you will understand why Minette received a text from Mel last night, which was, "Don't wear the short skirt." There are only two officers in the National Farmers Union and the CLA who wear skirts, and both of them are here. I was half tempted to wear my kilt and sit on this chair, but after your full breakfast, I don't think you'll appreciate me in a kilt on a high chair swimming around. So Minette, you're very welcome, and you and I have an important role to play, and it's very important you understand, ladies and gentlemen, the significance of the fact that both the NFU and the CLA are here together and talking about farming together. But secondly, I'd like to welcome one of the candidates in the general election who is, until Parliament was dissolved, a local Member of Parliament, Rebecca Powell. Rebecca is here. She is the Member of Parliament for Taunton Deane and has been since May 2015, when she had a stunning reversal there and overturned a Liberal Democrat majority and produced her own very significant one. So she's campaigning for re-election for next week. Rebecca is deeply committed to countryside and farming issues and has been a highly effective Member of Parliament. And I know that her influence is writ large in the Conservative manifesto, and I'm going to bring Rebecca into the conversation later, if I may, because I think it's very important for you to hear from her about that. There is a third person I just want to briefly mention. I'm going to hugely embarrass him, and that is because this is possibly, not definitely, but possibly his last Royal and Bath show, and that is the CLA's very own Paul Millard. Paul, where are you? Come up here, old chap, come on, up you come. If you're back here next year, no one will be more pleased than me, but if I miss the opportunity to thank you for 30 years service to the CLA, I will be mortified. Ladies and gentlemen, will you all please join me in a huge roar? Paul Millard. Well done, off you go. So I speak today as a fellow countryman and as president of the CLA, whose responsibility at a critical moment is to stand up for all we do as stewards, farmers and land managers. In our advocacy and by temperament, we take a long and positive view of the future, but with a realistic sense of priority, through wide public engagement and with much careful thought. This great agricultural show has significant purpose, perhaps more so than many shows, given how many visitors attend from the towns and the cities in this part of the country. It is an opportunity to meet with old friends, to share thoughts on what we do in farming, land conservation and land management, or indeed in diversified businesses in the countryside, or even just as members of rural communities living and working in the countryside. 2 weeks ago, I launched our Countryside Matters campaign, I said then that the British countryside is the 8th wonder of the world, and I say that again today, and we're all very, very fortunate to be part of it. The countryside is what it is because of you and the thousands of farmers and landowners across the country, and the way that you manage the land and invest in your businesses and indeed in your communities. And it does not look like this by accident, but through the hard work of the many thousands of people that live and work here through all the seasons. And a significant part of the story is that millions and millions of people visit and enjoy it year in, year out, from across our towns and cities, and indeed from across the world. This truly is a countryside for everyone. Our campaign, ladies and gentlemen, is about making sure that at this critical moment, with a new government shortly to be elected, a government that will be tasked with delivering Brexit, a unique challenge of a scale that is hard to underestimate, that they hear a strong rallying voice from the countryside as a whole. I'm delighted that in merely a few days we have had thousands of supporters sign up to show their support on social media or through engagement at events that we've held around the country, such as shows like this. The message, the countryside matters, it resonates, and it convinced me of the importance of pushing on well beyond the 8th of June. The campaign is first and foremost to make sure that the rural voice is heard above the crowd, energising people to speak out and tell their elected representatives and others that these issues matter and must be treated seriously and with a sense of priority. But it is also about reaching out, especially to those that don't live and work here, explaining how the countryside looks the way it does, how the food that arrives on people's plates, and how we sustain our rural way of life are all critical. It is also about ideas for the future, and that is what I am particularly interested in talking to you all about today. The CLA is one of many organisations that speak for the countryside, that has set out its priorities during the election campaign. And elections are a good time for setting out our priorities. So I'm really heartened by the similarities I see across the spectrum of rural voices, and I really look forward to hearing from Manette on this subject in a moment. In a long list of priorities, it is hard to see food, farming and Brexit as anything other than top of the list. And our community has talked about this area of policy more than any other in the past year, and David alluded to it in his own words. We are rightly concerned about the uncertainty that comes from the end of 43 years of being within the EU. The certainty that the Common Agricultural Policy provides, for instance, its payments into the rural economy and its framework for regulation. I have to say it has been far from perfect, but we must resist the temptation to seek a rapid removal of these pillars that have shaped what we do in farming. However, there is a growing and more powerful sense of opportunity that I perceive, a chance for change, not just in policy, but in the industry as a whole. The Common Agricultural Policy and its twin sister, the Common Fisheries Policy, have been just that, common to a diverse range of countries, peoples and climates. Their budgets and their distribution, rules and environmental laws have been shaped elsewhere. They have been the master of so many, but insensitive at times to the needs of the local. And so for the first time in 2 generations, it'll be up to us in Britain to shape our own future, to prioritise investment, both public and private, as we see fit, to account to the British people, but for both what we do with each passing season as countrymen and for the return on their investment, public money. It is the chance to develop a new approach that will set us right for the next 40 years. And so I'm going to offer you some thoughts on how a new policy could be framed. Firstly, that UK agriculture can thrive given the right conditions. with far greater investment and appropriate support to drive a far more productive agricultural sector that can be a leader within a global market. Of that, I am quite convinced it is possible. That a new generation of farmer coming through will be willing and able to seize the challenge of farming, working together collaboratively, far more collaboratively, and in new ways, for the better performance of their own enterprises and for farming more generally. That our management of the countryside, if properly funded and with the right direction and care, can make a step change in conservation for the benefit of all. Over the coming months, the CLA will talk more about the need for a new contract between you and I, the farming citizen, and the state. What I describe as a contract for services that rewards farmers for the work they do and for which the market does not provide. A new contract that is better understood by everyone, including the public, with clearer objectives, outcomes that really matter, and far, far easier to administer. You'll hear more of that in coming months. I have great confidence that all of those seeking elections, such as Rebecca next week, want to do what is best for our great countryside. I do not believe that anyone wants to choke off funding that helps to ensure that we're managing our land and landscapes in the best interests of future generations, or indeed ensuring that we have safe, secure, high quality and affordable food. I'm optimistic that the next government, of whatever colour it is, will continue to invest in the countryside. But I'm not complacent about this. There are a range of competing demands on the public purse, and our national resources are not infinite. So as we campaign, one of our core messages is as follows. Continue to invest in us and work with us to find new ways to build the world-leading farming sector that our country needs and to deliver the countryside that everyone values. I've only spoken about the top of the list, but there are other priorities. Delivering the homes that our rural community needs is a very close second. And in July, we will be leading this debate at the CLA with a new, far-reaching report, and we're going to hold a rural housing summit in London on the 5th of July. If housing is an important part of your business, as it is for mine, please do save the date and come along. In coming months, we'll be taking these messages around the country to shows like this, to candidates in this election, and then to the newly elected members of Parliament, spreading our word in the media also. We'll be commissioning new research that shows how much the British public love the countryside and seeking their views on how it should be invested in. This is a vital campaign at a pivotal moment, and I hope very much that each and every one of you will lend us your support. So can I please ask of all of you in this tent today, individually, to help, if you agree with me that the countryside matters. Firstly, please sign up as campaign supporters here in this pavilion. And you can do so by picking up this little card on your tables, and it says, "The countryside matters to me because," and you then fill it in. Now, Sir John Cave last week filled it in, and he said, "Because President Murray told me to do so," which I then tweeted and got an angry reply from a lady from Workington who wasn't very impressed. She said, "Who is this man, President Murray?" But would you all please fill it in? It's important that we get vox pops, that we hear from you individually what you personally think. So there it is, and you get a free pen supplied by one of our generous sponsors to do it. Secondly, contact the political candidates, such as Rebecca, where you live, and challenge them as to whether they would support continuing public investment in the countryside. And if it helps, the CLA has produced a list of political priorities for the countryside over the next 5 years, which you might like to refer to. It asks the questions to which we feel you are entitled to a reasoned answer. So badger them, hound them, don't let up if you think in any way they do not get that the countryside matters. And beyond the election, keep going once they are members of Parliament. Just remember, we're all political now. We need to be political. And thirdly, always keep in mind that the British countryside is special, that it is home to very special people who do special things, and that the countryside matters greatly, and indeed to us all. So John, I salute you and the great Bath and West Show. You follow in a distinguished line of show presidents. You're all showmen here at the Bath and West Show. We had Michael Eavis last year, and before that Lord Fellows. You're all great characters, and you imprint your own personality on these shows, and it's fantastic that you are following in the footsteps of your father, who was chief steward here in leading this great show. So I wish the show every success, and thank you and all of you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you very much indeed.